This is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. So please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or 8317. And when you call in, you'll hear a little buzzy noise as we put you in the system. Wait until Shelley says you're on the air, and then please turn down your radio, give us a name, and keep it clean.
Your language.
What's your language? What's your language? This is part of the subject
topic,
today.
Yes.
How did somebody watch their language?
Oh.
See the words coming out of your mouth. It's about censorship today. We're talking about censorship in all its many forms, from disinformation to non-information to actively hiding. And, of course, we are subject to censorship in a kind of way. We are not allowed to swear on the air because this is a live radio show, and the FCC is always looking for ways to increase its
You know, I have to
income.
Have to credit the caller from last week that called my attention on politically correct, and I did a little research on that. But it's a form of censorship, so I got to credit that listener. I don't remember her name, but Creda. She moved us into a bigger topic of censorship, and after the show, Paul and I looked it up, and it actually goes back way, way farther.
Oh, yes. Oh, there's always been censorship, isn't there?
No, well, the notion of politically correct.
Oh, politically correct.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it this morning, and that people who talk about political correctness, especially when we talk about names that we choose to call different groups of human beings, for example, that the people who call it political correctness are the people who don't like to speak in kind words towards that particular group. Otherwise, it's just basic respect, politeness, kindness, all of these kind of good human relationship kind of things.
Exactly.
But the idea of political correctness, because somebody says, hey, please don't call me that, we should respect that. That's what I think.
It's just be nice.
Yeah, can't we? Well, and also, like, not overreacting.
Right.
You know, get into a conversation, but don't just go off the handle if somebody says something in terms that you don't agree with. To
the point, which would be part of the censorship thing has been, as we mentioned last week also, the UC Berkeley not allowing Milo, whatever his name was, Yiannopoulos, to come and speak at the birthplace of the free speech movement, which is terribly ironic. But a form of censorship, not allowing people to speak their mind in public, in a public forum.
So that's censorship via rioting crowd.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what thoughts did you have? It was really your idea, Stephen, to... by the way, Stephen Hurwitz, Shelley Rugg,
and Paul Raphael.
Yes, here we are again.
Give us a call, 415-663-8492.
Well, you know, a couple of things came to my mind, and one is, as I look it up, we have the most timely thing is the Internet. and the social media and the censorship, and just as importantly, the selection of what material actually hits social media, which I think today is one of the primary sources where people get their information.
Yeah.
So you have this censorship by choice. That happens with all the media essentially as to what they allow to be reported and what isn't reported. It could be just editorial selection, you could call it that way. Everything isn't entitled to be reported. And then you have, from what I was reading, is you have a lot of people censoring themselves in terms of criticism of China. I was kind of surprised by that because the Chinese have a lot of influence and money to throw around at universities, and a lot of Chinese students come here by permission of the Chinese government, and they require tech companies to conform to their rules and regulations regarding what information is dispensed. That's been a huge controversy over that. So it's some of the things that I was thinking about.
Social media. Facebook is apparently censoring images of starving Yemeni children.
Really?
Because their algorithm picks it up as sexual...
Nude bodies.
Nude child bodies. That's the kind of silliness that we're dealing with automatic censorship.
Right, exactly. It's done by...
Trying to keep us safe.
Artificial intelligence recognizes certain things and says, there's a lot of skin there. It must be nudity. I had that happen to me. I posted a painting that was of the face of a woman with the face of her cat next to her head, and it got tagged by AI as nudity.
Huh.
Yeah.
It was a painting.
It was a painting.
Both people...
Only showing faces.
Both creatures were painted. Only showing faces. Wow.
Yeah.
There you are.
Well, I wish more cats were
censored off.
Knocked off.
But, these things happen, and that's something, too, is that we have to, at least try to say, excuse me, Facebook, you're wrong, and let's try this again.
Right.
Or we can,
until they got found out, they were not doing anything about censoring
Analytica.
Influence Analytica, giving,
Cambridge Analytica.
And selling information to Netflix and even private messaging, Let that be a lesson to us all. It may say it's private, but it's actually the property of Facebook. That's how that works.
Shelley, what you said about these algorithms, I'm just getting more and more, concerned, let's put it that way, mildly, about the control that we have over us. I'm sure everyone thinks
influence.
About it. But when you have the internet and social media, et cetera, being so powerful in terms of information, and then you have algorithms
that are controlling what you see. Yeah.
Artificial intelligence that is programmed by somebody to determine what we see, what we hear. This is getting really, really weird.
Well, I think part of it is that the technology is really quite new, and the experiences we're having are quite new, relatively in the course of humanity. So there's a lot to be learned still, I think, about how these things should be handled, how we interface with them, who's responsible for what.
I think Facebook and social media in general have taken a hands-off approach, right? This is the people's forum, and they created these vehicles that were ripe for being exploited for whatever reason you want to. They're just starting to program in some of these censoring algorithms, and of course, there's hardly any human brain work. I mean, there's not much human going into the algorithms are just doing it automatically, is what I'm saying. And somebody created the algorithms, but
right, human design.
But that's just. It's, for some reason, picks up on a cat in a painting and says, "Oh, Neanderthal." Yeah.
Well, with the rise of authoritarian governments, it seems to be definitely on the rise. You know, censorship is a part and parcel with the creation of those kinds of political states.
Right.
You have to definitely seriously control what people hear and know. So combine algorithm with authoritarian governments and,
and complete information about everybody. I mean, without any, they'd make no bones about
no
it.
accountability.
Right.
Yeah, they'd listen, or they have the ability to monitor all communications now. So
even more, China.
Maybe it's time to censor ourselves.
Yeah, Chinese. That's another one. People do censor themselves, but the Chinese now. This is not censorship per se, but they're developing algorithms that will facial identity that they can actually pick out a face in a crowd. Which would be very interesting. Not only are we on camera all the time, but we can be identified on camera specifically.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
But they can also make mistakes, and that's scary, too.
But isn't that keeping us all safe?
You mean like Buttle and Tuttle there in the movie Brazil?
Well, I know, as far as facial recognition, my experience only on Facebook, that sometimes you'll put a picture up and Facebook says, tag this with your name or somebody you know, and that it's wrong. And so I know that does happen. It's not always correct, facial recognition.
Oh. But Facebook tags people's faces itself, or?
It can.
Oh.
Don't people have to tag it, though?
Well, yeah. You have to make the move, but I'm saying that they don't always get it right. They often do. But there are glitches. They misread the face and assign it to someone else.
So if I put a funny little mustache on, they might think I'm Adolf Hitler.
It'd be banned. It would be too sexual.
But yeah, that's out of the... what do you call it? Artificial intelligence trying to help us post a picture. Oh, shall I tag this person? You know. But anyway,
give us a call. Why don't you tell us your thoughts about censorship? Is it necessary? I mean, it's always been there ever since we had anybody communicating with anybody else. We've had censorship, right? Book burnings. Anyway, 415-663-8492. Certainly political parties, back if you were a communist in the 50s, oof. And if you wrote a book that had naughty bits in it, oof. Lady Chatterley's Lover, for example. Oh, and
I read it. It really wasn't up to the hype.
Yeah, well, yeah. This is it. Who decides?
There
was Molly Bloom.
Molly Bloom, exactly.
What was that? Satanic Verses?
Satanic Verses.
I remember when that came out.
Yeah.
They marked him for death.
The fatwa against him. It was just when we sort of decided to come up with this subject. I was watching one of my favorite shows, QI, quite interesting, it's called. And the question was, what did these three musicians have in common? So George Formby, when I'm cleaning windows, you never believe the sights I see when I'm cleaning windows. He was an old vaudeville guy. He was banned from the BBC, as of course were the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, and Donna Summer, Love to Love You Baby, because of it sounded like an orgasm happening. And you couldn't have that on a music show. So, who decides? And in the old days, in Britain anyway, there was a woman called Mary Whitehouse who took it upon herself to be the arbiter of taste on the BBC. It was only the BBC then, I think. Maybe ITV as well. She was one of the ones. She was the one who wanted Frank Zappa just to stop playing anything. Don't play
just
anything.
Stop.
We just don't want to hear this. And here we had Tipper Gore, right? Tipper Gore was trying to get indecent or swearing out of music back when Frank Zappa was still alive, and he went before a hearing, before a committee. Anyway.
Well, we do have a caller, everyone. Caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please?
Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Oh.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
So censorship is, I don't know if you talked about this in the first few minutes of the show. What about the climate web pages being taken down under the Trump administration, like all the info about climate change and climate science?
Yes.
That's pretty darned egregious.
And the same thing, Florida employees of the state of Florida are not allowed to mention climate change or global warming, and I believe the same applies to the Interior Department, doesn't it? Something like that.
But isn't that like a crime against humanity, basically?
Sure feels like it.
Yeah.
It could be taken that way, sure.
I'm taking it that way.
Because you could say, well, I won't take that job, but, somebody else will take that job.
Yeah.
And go along with it.
And if the people who are supposedly guarding us from the effects of global warming, climate change, can't even talk about it or write anything about it, then yes, it's a crime. Yes, absolutely. Crime against humanity.
I think it
Line them up.
I think it shows the power of the fossil fuel industry. This government is really... they've turned over the reins of power to that one single industry. So science, global warming somehow
along with weapons too
doesn't fit in with their the weapons doesn't fit in with their their ideology. So government's got to censor it.
Censor it. That's what government's for, after all.
It's sort of you're likening it to what you were talking about with the pictures of the famine in various parts of the world, in Yemen, and there's something else. I mean, this isn't maybe censorship, but it's word choice in the news. It's sort of branding of a situation or characterizing of a situation. I keep hearing Yemen is on the brink of famine, that 250,000 people or however many
are already starving.
Are on the brink of famine.
Makes it sound
start yelling
better, doesn't
radio. No, they're in the famine. The famine.
Yeah.
They're not on the brink. It's not like about. So what it does is it makes it seem like it's not really. Like it might not happen when it's actually been happening. Continues. So things are sort of soft pedaled.
Mm-hmm.
That's they. I don't know. Sell it in a way that people can hear it without
palatable.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to talk about the Yemen, but that does really depend on, in a more general sense, the eye of the beholder, so to speak. Now, I mean, it's open to controversy as to what the condition of any one given thing is. I'm not going to talk about, famine or whatever, but I mean, one person might look at a situation as not being close to happening or whatever, and another person.
Well,
might see.
No.
Don't you think it's subjective?
Evidence.
Not really. Not when there are
of starvation.
No, I know. That's pretty. That's
people dying of starvation.
No, I agree. I'm setting that aside.
Yeah, but
have you been there? Have you seen them personally?
Have I seen them personally? Should I believe the pictures I'm seeing?
I have a timeshare in Yemen. No, I don't. I mean, weren't really, as a Jewish person, it wasn't really such a friendly place to be anyway. For many years, and
yes,
well,
things are getting worse and worse.
That brings up religion, of course,
and of course the British Empire. It was part of the British Empire for a long time too. Yeah, no, we did our damage.
Kind of what was it that Orwell says? Some kind of something speak, double speak, whatever he says. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But that just goes. That's kind of in the marital bed with censorship,
Right.
And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Would you call in and tell us more about marital bed, though? And
good heavens.
Could I possibly when I'm not married?
Oh. Are we dropping hints? Is that what's happening?
I was married a long time ago. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
And I'm going to censor. We would have to censor the rest of the If you don't know what happens with the marital bed, for goodness sake.
All right.
Too late to teach you now.
Yeah. You're late. A little late in, what's it called? A late bloomer.
Late bloomer. Okay. A late Molly bloomer.
Yeah, Google it.
Thank
All right,
you,
thanks
Sally.
for calling. Bye-bye.
Yes. So censorship has been with us forever, I would say. Socrates was forced to commit suicide with hemlock because the rulers didn't like what he wrote, didn't like his philosophy. He was stirring up the people. How about Jesus Christ? There's censorship for you. He was strung up.
Well, this whole
for whipping up the peoples.
The nuances of it. The beginning in authoritarian governments, the beginning is to undermine the press, which I think that's been a big objective of our current government, is to say, well, you can't trust the press.
You've got a liar needs everyone needs you to think that everyone else is the liar. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name?
Hi, folks. It's still Charlie.
Hey, Charlie, and you remembered to turn your radio down this time. Good job.
That's right.
Oh, no.
Let me back up. Wait a minute. Okay.
I was
hopeful.
It's
just like the cha-cha. I just backed up. When Paul mentioned Jesus Christ, it reminded me that a lot of people consider the fact that the Bible that people stand by and will fight over was censored numerous times.
Absolutely.
If there was a single, edition of a book, which the Bible just means book, there were at least encyclicals in Ghent and Constantinople where they just got in there, and it became a political thing, and they just carved it up the way they wanted it,
right?
Which would work for them. So
they got rid of the what were those ones they found in the earthenware jars?
Oh, that's right.
The Gnostic,
right?
The Gnostic Bible, original, at least as old as any of the other books in the Bible, and yet they did not want to know about them because they told different stories.
What was it? The Dead Sea Scrolls.
Dead Sea Scrolls. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because it's such an influential book, and it's very possible that some of the other influential books have been, shall we say, edited for political purposes.
And become the basis for people feeling like they have the right to censor other people's speech if it goes against what their faith.
Yeah, and you see it even in the same general religious body, like Protestants and Catholics. I mean, there's an old joke about old Ireland, where this guy came up to a place where there was a barrier where they were going to check your identity, and they'd say, "What's your religion?"
Yeah.
He'd say, "Atheist." And the guy would say, "Catholic atheist or Protestant?" Anyway, I think I'll get off.
I'd have to say Jewish atheist.
Yeah, right. Whatever fits, Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot for your good show. And,
thank you, Charlie.
We're listening.
Thanks for calling in.
Great.
Right,
thanks. Bye.
Yeah, give us a call, 415-663-8492. We're talking about censorship in all its forms.
Probably one of
historical and
probably one of the most brutal censorship right now is the murder of journalists. It's very hard to be a journalist in Mexico right now. We just had this one, Saudi Arabia, and I think 19 journalists in Mexico were killed this year.
Really?
I may be wrong about that number. And if somebody knows, call in. But it's a big deal. You cannot report on the cartels. It's like signing your death warrant.
Yeah. And certainly there is a lot of, as you were saying, a lot of antipathy towards the press here in the U.S., which is being whipped up by someone. And news organizations being blocked from covering the White House and covering meetings. There were meetings where only right-wing news organization representatives were allowed to come. The National Journalists Association, anyway, called that basically censorship. You're censoring the work of the media, of journalists who may not necessarily toe whatever party line needs to be towed in the White House these days, whatever that means.
Fair, balanced, broad reporting.
The no-spin zone, right? Remember that? But there's more a form of censorship too. Bill O'Reilly got thrown off. All these other guys who love to grab women and fondle them without their consent. They got thrown out and censored, and indeed some of the victims were thrown out as well. Is that censorship, or is that just
standing up for your values?
Being nasty.
I want to just get back to this thing about China again, because there's been a lot written about this. But there's this guy Robert Barnett who ran Columbia University's Modern Tibetan Studies program, and he. From 1999 through 2017, and he emphasized that Columbia never actively restricted his work, but there were often a very strong tendency within the university and with many prestigious institutions in the United States not to include people who study the kind of subject I work on or in any kind of academic collaborations in China or in dialogues with Chinese delegates. So, the universities are essentially, listen, Tibet's too heavy a subject for us to handle. The Chinese are too important, so let's just not include people who have that kind of information.
Mm-hmm. It's dangerous. That's the idea, right? Just keep the dangerous words away. Keep the dangerous studies away. Speaking of which, Wilhelm Reich. The orgone box, all his studies into orgones. His books were actually burned through the American Medical Association's guidance. They said this man should not be allowed to talk. He was put in jail. Did he in jail? Maybe. Should not be able to espouse his theories, his scientific theories, whatever. And they actually burned every book of his that they could find, anyway, and demolished his orgone boxes because he was...
What is an orgone box?
Oh, no.
Let's get back to that after the station break here. You are listening...
I wasn't in on that.
I would like to know, too. You're listening to KWMR, Point Reyes Station. KWMR is supported by John Roach Services in Point Reyes Station, with over 20 years of experience in full-service farm and ranch repair, portable welding, material hauling, defensible space clearing, and custom goat grazing. John Roach Services, reachable at 707-696-1983. That's 707-696-1983. KWMR is brought to you by our listener members and by Pacific Slope Tree Cooperative. Homegrown, experienced, and equipped, they have been doing tree care in the watershed since 1972. 663-1300. Pacific Slope Tree Cooperative. 663-1300. KWMR is supported by Tamales Bay Resort and Marina in Inverness, offering waterfront lodging, a private beach, boat launch ramp, solar-heated pool, and electric vehicle chargers. Fogg's Kitchen and Lounge is located on site at the resort, featuring waterfront dining, weekend brunches, local specials, and space for local event needs. Information at tamalesbayresort.com and fogskitchen.com. And you're listening to Let's Talk Call-In Radio. We're talking about censorship, and we'd love you to call in 415-663-8492. And what's that thing we want to know what it is?
Well, so Wilhelm Reich. This is a favorite one of conspiracy theorists everywhere, because he was an outspoken. He was a Freudian psychoanalyst from Austria, graduated from in Vienna. But he talked a lot about, as did Freud, but was less castigated for it perhaps than Wilhelm Reich. He talked a lot about how neurosis was based in sexual psychoses, and so he wanted to find a way, as did all Freudians, to combat neuroses and he wanted to be able to prevent it. And he said he discovered, let's see, where is it? Orgone. He moved to New York in 1939 to escape the Nazis, and after arriving, he coined the term orgone, from orgasm and organism, for a biological energy he said he had discovered, which he said others called God. And in 1940, he started building orgone accumulators, devices that his patients sat inside to harness the reputed health benefits, leading to newspaper stories about sex boxes that cured cancer. So,
interesting.
Does anyone have one? Does anyone in the Westmoreland community have an orgone box?
I wouldn't be surprised.
It reminds me
I bet
of
there's one hiding up on the Inverness Ridge.
So if you have
the Woody Allen
experience
movie,
with this,
you know that Woody Allen movie Sleeper.
Yeah,
and they'd go into that little box.
Yeah, the orgasmatron.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, he was certainly castigated for his views. He was certainly not popular with the medical associations, but they went so far as to actually destroy everything that they could find that he had done. He'd hit a nerve somewhere, I guess. I'm not sure where he died.
So censorship goes beyond disapproving. Censorship is actively eradicating or prohibiting specific. In other words, if they just said, "Gee, we don't like him. We think he's a flake," that would be fine. But if they're going to burn all his books,
it would be a scientific debate, wouldn't it? You have to prove what you're doing. Isn't that what science is all about? And he said he could prove it. He was one of the he sort of experimented with oscillographs, and before he came to America, and he asked volunteers, friends and students, volunteered to touch and kiss each other while Reich read the tracings on the oscillograph. And it's not a lie detector, but it's not reading body functions. It's just reading energy, right?
Yeah. Well, we do have
one of the volunteers was Willy Brandt, the future Chancellor of Germany. There you go.
There we go. One of the big things of censorship, of course, is do people have the right to hate speech? That's a big one.
Well, I don't know. Do they?
The consensus is no, actually.
It's against the law, is it not?
I think the consensus is there are limits to what we can say.
Right.
Of course, there's the old one, can you yell fire in a crowded theater? No.
Is that actually against the law? Is there a law against it? Or is it just not done?
Well, we do have a caller.
Oh.
Caller, you are on the air. What's your name?
Hi, yes, I'm Nora. Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
So I had a couple of comments. One is on the orgone box. My cousins used to be put into an orgone box when they were little, when they behaved badly.
Oh, my.
So my aunt was a follower of Reich, and in New York it had become kind of a cult, actually. So she had a husband chosen for her and was pretty much told to have as many babies as she could, whether or not she felt like she should. Had 4 kids, and then had these orgone boxes for trying to correct children's behavior, along with many other kind of weird cultish things.
Wow!
So
like a whole culture was created around this orgone box.
No, not around the box, but around Wilhelm Reich.
Wilhelm Reich, yeah. His theories. Well, it was all about sex, right? I mean, it was like the sex cult.
it on in the 70s.
We have kind of a bad connection, Nora.
I'm trying.
Could you call back in on a different phone or something?
She's driving.
You're driving?
Yeah.
Oh.
Bluetooth.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling in. That was really interesting.
It'd be a great subject to explore, though, cults.
Well. Yes, there have been a few. Yes, he died in jail, died in federal prison.
In prison for what?
I was just looking that up. Anyway, we have a caller.
We do? We do. Look at that. All right. Caller, you are on the air. What's your name?
Goody. This is Melinda.
Hi, Melinda.
Inverness. Well, I'm just calling because I'm not really quite up to date on this, but our wonderful radio station of the Bay Area, KPFA, has censored the best program on their list as far as I was concerned.
And what was that?
It was Guns and Butter. Bonnie Faulkner interviewed people, and they apparently there must be a split in the listenership because hundreds of people wrote in comments that Bonnie Faulkner should not be taken off the air as the best program they have, and on and on.
Why do you think they did it?
Because of the people she was interviewing were just too unorthodox, and questioning what happened way back in 9/11. That started it off.
I see.
And then just all kinds of people, scientists and political theorists, and anyway, I was terrified, mainly selfishly because I liked the program so much, and they took her off the air 10 minutes before she was ready to go on, and they eliminated all her archives. They took them off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
WWII kept it for a while, and they still have some archives, but I've had to Guns and Butter on SoundCloud page.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, and here we had this very liberal, Pacifica. Anyway, it was almost like
more radical in the early days when I listened.
It definitely raises some big questions.
It's a huge question, and I guess enough people out here aren't listening because the people who do are all shocked and everything, but they're not really doing much about it. I've written to KPFA and said I'm sending my money to Bonnie Faulkner and Guns and Butter instead. Not that I have that much, and somebody with a lot of money must have got their ear and said, you got to take it off or you're not going to get our donation. But anyway, money talks, and this is so local and so present.
But at the same time, gosh, we like to think that a station like KPFA is above that kind of manipulation.
Exactly. But so I don't know what's been going on with the what do you call it? The management, general manager who kicked her off. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a story here that we aren't privy to.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can find out online, of course. And, it happened in August, and it took me a while to pick up on the fact that it wasn't coming back. And then I read the background of it, what happened. So anyway, there you go. Yeah. Some censorship right in our face.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah. You can look on just look up Guns and Butter, and you can get a show and see what you think of her. She's a very skillful interviewer.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is that censorship does not allow us the opportunity to see what we think about something, right?
Yeah.
It prevents us from having that opportunity to make our own judgment.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, there we go. Thank you,
Melinda.
Thank you, Melinda.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm just thinking, though, sorry, but right now we have more ways to get information, even without considering censorship, than has ever been in existence before. With the internet, we're all publishers. That's never been the case before.
I would add,
tremendous
though,
power.
There's even more ways that we can get disinformation these days.
That's right.
Than ever before. It's just so much more easy for those who want to spin it in crazy ways to reach us. Text messages, over the phone, internet.
So what do we do about that? Do we censor things that we don't agree with? How do you prove something is fake news? Once it's gone out anyway, it's kind of
really
too
hard.
late. So what do you
Really
do?
hard.
You prevent someone from saying a certain set of words? Or
the question is, even if it's a private source of media, do they have the they don't have the responsibility to print or facilitate every point of view. That's where the money starts talking, is when they I have a newspaper, New York Times, whatever, they have to print whatever they want. Whatever fits. Yeah, it's selective.
All the news that fits.
It's selective.
Well, we have a caller. Caller, you are on the air. What's your name?
It's Sally calling again.
Sally.
Hey, Sally.
I used to engineer for Bonnie Faulkner and Guns and Butter. I like Bonnie personally. Her show, just to give you a little background, is very edgy in the sense that she talks to people about things like, the 9/11 conspiracies and so forth.
Right.
And she has a very dedicated following, and I'm pretty sure you can get her shows. She has a very, very high production values, and they were all beautifully self-contained and pre-produced before they came to be on the air. So what I feel is that people who still want to hear her show can probably
find it
at something like gunsandbutter.org, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, is that her thing? Yeah, so
but somewhere there's an archive.
She's very bright. She's very bright, but yeah, it's sometimes at KPFA shows were unceremoniously cut down, as in pulled off the air literally right before they were to go on the air. The morning show, which was a wonderful sort of public affairs and local news and arts 2-hour show that was on Monday through Fridays, was cut in such a way, and that was with previous management. It wasn't the current management.
Wow.
But I think what precipitated this, just FYI, is that this cutting of Guns and Butter is because she had aired something called The Impact of Zionist Influence in the U.S.
Oh.
She aired this, and it was a presentation by Alan Zabrowski as part of a panel, Zionism Deconstructing the Power Paradigm, I think was part of it. So I believe that this guy, Alan Zabrowski, created an uproar because I think he's a Is he a Holocaust denier? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Anyway,
I mean,
so something very controversial.
There would, we don't know all the stories of why things go away. It's always hard when programs go away, and it can feel like censorship, and it's always very upsetting and difficult when change happens, and we love our shows, and so that's all I'm trying to say, is just to give a little
possibility,
a little alternative perspective. Certainly she did not have the only show there or at other stations that is called controversial.
Right.
So
it has been true over the years that if you mention Zionism, or if you say things that are not in showing Israel perhaps in the best light, that the hammer can fall on things. Like the old weekly from Bolinas that used to come out, unedited basically, and there was a lot of ranting in there, but boy, the Anti-Defamation League came at them and went after all their advertisers and shut them down. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There you go. And there's a Boston billboard, apparently, that says, honoring the first responders of Gaza, with a photo of a lovely woman in a headscarf. A doctor working with the people in Gaza. It was removed because it was claimed to be anti-Semitic. There you go. You can't do that. So there you are.
That hypersensitive.
Yeah, Israel is hands off. You can't say anything about Israel.
Yeah, so anti-Semitism and anti-Israel are two different things, and they can merge. It's like sine waves. They can kind of, merge and become entangled, and then they can be pulled apart, teased apart, and I don't know. It's, I wish, and then again, I wish I knew more about what I was just talking about. I hope I didn't mischaracterize anything about guns and butter and stuff. I just remember a whole lot of 9/11 conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
So that's all I can remember. It's almost like that was all she was airing, but that can't be really true.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you run an engineering, when you run a board and for a show, you're basically listening for inappropriate language like profanity, and you can miss the entire what the show is actually talking about. So, thank you again.
Thank you again.
We sort of missed that ourselves.
Thanks, Sally. Bye-bye.
What you missed, don't go there, Stephen.
We don't have the 7-second delay here. So.
Yeah, see, KPFA has a delay, and it has a dump button. So, Stephen, you could have a show there where you or any of us, but
it would just be the dump show.
Dump button, and it kind of erases, I think 30 seconds.
My wife would like one of those, actually.
Oh, dear.
I think that's a topic for another show.
Another show, another time. Thank you.
Marriage, that's a
Bye, Sally.
That's a good show, Marriage.
So how about arts? The arts.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Censoring art. Robert Mapplethorpe, remember him?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big hoo-ha about him showing photographs of naked men. Oh, no. Is it art?
Who's the artist that photographed beautiful photographs of young girls? He became very controversial. I can't remember the guy's name, but
I think that was The Gap.
The Gap. And it was Ralph Lauren or somebody else.
Teenagers.
So art censorship. Should art be censored? Yes, of course it should. Like every other medium, it is censored, isn't it? That's just how it works. Anything that we can see, somebody wants to say that that's indecent and should not be shown.
But in the art world, sometimes it's the very things that you think should be censored become something of a rage.
Notoriety.
The art world is
Jeff Koons does.
It could be turned upside down. Yeah, should we show Jeff Koons having sex with his porno wife Nicolina or whatever it was?
Oh, dear.
Well, not that I'd be interested in owning it.
It is sort of nauseating to see artists who it seems like they are kind of trying to pick a fight to draw attention to themselves.
That happens too.
You know, the materials they use, like urine or elephant dung.
We heard about it.
And part
that shows that it works.
A big reason we heard about it also is because those particular artists received funding from our National Endowment for the Arts. So people felt like, well, I don't want to pay for that. And I'd like to do that about the military. Can I vote to not? Can I say
censored?
I can't pay.
That dump button?
I don't want to pay for the military.
Can't criticize our heroes. Now,
thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Education.
Absolutely.
Books that are not allowed in schools, for example, in Texas.
Oh, boy.
And other wonderful places where...
They're rewriting textbooks now that you bring it up. Textbooks are old. They are undergoing, in many ways, being rewritten. and who has control over that format has a tremendous amount of power.
School boards.
Right.
Tremendous amount of power.
Do you think they're going to rewrite history as it actually happened for a change?
No.
I like your decisiveness, Paul. That's awesome.
Revisionism is the way. You got to make everything sound good and happy for the white folks.
I personally think the Ten Commandments should be taught in the schools, but I think they should read the entire commandment, not just these abbreviated form that comes out to one sentence. Oh. The commandments are very interesting, and if you actually read them in their entirety, Christianity, the fundamentalist Christians are in no way conforming to the Ten Commandments. There's no question about it.
Can't we censor some of them, though? I mean, there's 4 or 5 of them that are just about taking the Lord's name in vain or not erecting metal bronze statues in the shape of a pig or something. It's
you mean
can we just do away with those?
Graven images, yeah.
Yeah. Can we do away with those? Can we have the 6 commandments?
Well, I think that was one of the Protestants. I think
the important ones.
That was a Protestant complaint about the Roman Catholic Church, was that they were,
graven images.
Graven images, yeah. So you go to the Protestant, really fundamental. You don't see a crucified Jesus on the cross bleeding.
Hence, also in Islam, they do not allow.
They are very
images.
Strict in that regard. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we have a caller.
It's me again.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Melinda.
Hi. It was good that she. Oh God, now I'm spacing out.
Sally
mentioned some of the programming, but I wanted to mention what she's been doing lately. Like, here's a couple: the vocabulary of economic deception. Michael Hudson. He talks about these words like conspiracy theorist. Those are tags. Holocaust deniers. It's somebody who just has a different. It doesn't mean they say the Holocaust didn't happen. Okay. Foreshadowing, ritual, and symbology in film. And myths, lies, oil, and climate wars. William F. Engel. Rescuing the banks instead of the economy. Michael Hudson. Yeah.
Good one.
Robert Schosch on the solar-induced dark age, which is very interesting. So it's some interesting science.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just wanted to say that it hasn't all been about 911.
Right.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Melinda.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet she still gets off the air. Well, censorship. I don't know. Don't we need it? Are we? Will there not always be people who are going to lie in every kind of media that exists? And should we not, the gullible public, be protected from that? Because we've forgotten how to.
But can we trust the protectors? I think that's the question. Can we trust the protectors?
Exactly. Well, who are the arbiters of taste, truth, and all that? Right now, I guess in the hierarchy of things, it is the state boards of education as for teaching children. What was that? Of course, evolution, can't be taught without. In some states, can't be taught without also
creationism.
And I read an article that what was it? Oh, there's a creationist university or a creationist school that is being built in the Galapagos Islands.
Really?
That's so. Someone with a great sense of humor.
There's a Netflix documentary coming for you.
The Galapagos Islands, where Darwinism all began. Yep. Anyway.
Well, it looks like we're about to wrap it up here.
Are we? Well, that sounds like censorship to me. Trying to cut me off. Wow.
I actually did walk away from a job because I was told that I may not say certain things.
Oh.
Which I had a real problem with because the things I had been saying were completely honest and true from my perspective. So I had to leave the job.
Can you give us a gist of what?
I was working for a nonprofit arts organization, an arts district, and they wanted me to produce an event for them, and I was at a meeting, and the head of the organization, they didn't show up at the meeting, and I expressed my frustration with this group that they want to hold an event and they don't come to the meetings. And a volunteer got back to the leaders and said I was saying bad things about them. And they had that volunteer hold my paycheck in her hand and tell me, here's your pay, but you can't... First you have to sign this contract that you won't say anything bad.
Wow.
So I said, no, thank you. Anyway, that's my story.
Little power in people's hands. That's what happens. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for listening and for calling in. This has been Let's Talk once again. KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. Have a lovely 25th of December. Have a lovely solstice, everybody. And someone will be here next week. Not myself, but...
Yet to be decided. Be here. Yeah, I guess Stephen and I will run the show without you.
There you go. Can it be done?
I don't know.
Though. I don't think it can. No. It's going to be very weak without you.
Oh, no. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Next week.
All right. Here we go.